Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Deason, Tom Wells, and Alyx King here. Today is Friday, December the 14th, 2018. It's 8 a.m. New York time, 5 a.m. Los Angeles time, 1 p.m. in London, and in Sydney, Australia, it's around 12 midnight. Thank you very much for joining us here. And no matter where you are in the world, we appreciate that you take the time out of your day or your night to join us and get your daily dose of happy, because that's what we're all about here. And I have to say, today is a day where I particularly appreciate a dose of happy because, as the two of us, as the three of us rather, as the three of us were talking just before the podcast, I got plenty of sleep last night. I can't quite understand what happened, but when I woke up, I was kind of woozy. The alarm actually woke me up, and when I rolled over after the alarm went off to see what time it was 20 minutes later. So I'm very disoriented this morning. And that's a good time to get that dose of happy, so you can just lift the vibration up. Because it's right, when I first woke up, it's like, oh, where am I? What time is it? What year is this? But it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
And this is going to be another Law of Attraction Q&A. So if you are listening to the live stream of this on Facebook's Law of Attraction Changed My Life group, we invite you, please start typing questions into the chat area, because we're going to address whatever questions you guys bring up. That's what we do during a Q&A. And while we're waiting for the people to start typing in the questions, I'll say, first of all, Alyx, good morning. How you doing? Good to see you again
Good
after
morning.
3 days later.
I
Yeah,
know, right?
you look like you're about as awake as I am actually this morning.
I am. I was like, wait, my alarm went off? I'm usually way up before my alarm.
Crazy. Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about, I think it was Tom who said, Tom, were you the one who said that this is because it was winter and we feel like we're in hibernation mode or
hmm
something? Yeah, okay, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think you're probably right, even though it's actually fall, but still, technically, it doesn't matter what it is. It feels
It
like winter.
feels like winter.
It
Yeah,
really
and it's
does.
almost we're almost at the shortest day of the year, so
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
yeah.
a weird time. I mean, I like the longest day of the year. I like lots of light and lots of sun and warmth. I'm really
Well,
designed to live in the tropics.
well, when you live in
Same.
the southern hemisphere, that's what you've got, because right now they're approaching their longest day of the year, right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
like their equivalent of summer, right? So,
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, they're like, the sun is up at 4:50 or something.
yeah, right, 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 yeah.
Uh, it's fun. It's a crazy place. So let's see what's going on. I'm literally my brain is working very, very slowly. So if it seems like I'm stumbling at times, it's because I am. Uh,
Do you drink coffee, Walt?
It's good to be
I
honest, Walt.
don't know. I usually don't regret that at all. I haven't had coffee on any kind of regular basis since I was in my 20s. But on a day like this, I kind of have to admit that I was in the coffee habit, if for no other reason than because you get that really lovely aroma whenever you're brewing the coffee, right?
Oh yeah,
It just
yeah.
kind of permeates the house. That'll wake you up by itself. You don't even have to drink the coffee. You just have to smell the darn thing. It'll just, oh wow, it must be morning.
For me, that smell is bacon.
Oh
Bacon,
yeah,
the same thing. Yes.
bacon
Yeah.
and coffee together. Yeah, makes a good
Bacon is
breakfast.
actually, it does. Oh yeah. Well, bacon is actually my favorite way to help my wife perk up. If she's having
Nice.
any time during the day, I'll suggest, well, make some bacon, bacon and eggs or something. And she'll say, oh, all right. And I'll put the bacon on, and she'll sit up and she'll perk up like, oh, that bacon smells so good.
Yes. Bacon solves everything.
Yeah. Well,
Is there,
now we have a topic for our podcast there,
that's right.
because everyone will like our topic.
I
Yeah.
have to ask though, is there a bacon
Except
food group?
veggie.
Because they say that chocolate is its own food group because
There probably is.
it has some protein, it has flour in it, it has egg in it, it has all these different ingredients, and so people justify it, by saying,
That's
well,
interesting.
you never heard that one? That chocolate's its own
No.
What?
But if
Chocolate
that
has,
was the case, then that means pizza is his own food group.
food?
yeah, right, right. And it could be,
Yeah. Should be at the
especially those
top of the
ones with
food
all
group
the
because it's got,
ingredients on.
yeah, you got your cheese,
Yeah,
you got your dairy, you got your
a whole,
tomato, you got,
a whole
and
garden full
depending
of
on,
vegetables. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
meat.
So now we've rewritten all of the food groups. What used to be what was it? It was vegetables and it was fruits, and then there was
Dairy,
proteins, dairy. Yeah. Now it's chocolate and pizza and
bacon.
bacon. And, yeah. Nutritionists all over the world are collapsing.
Yeah.
They are.
There's actually a restaurant in Denver that it's like it serves almost all those kind of comfort foods. That's the main thing it focuses on. So pizza,
Oh,
mac and cheese,
yes.
lots of whiskey, I mean, all this stuff that the young people just come in there and, oh, this is what I really want.
Oh my God. I need one of those over here because I love mac and cheese.
Oh, well,
You
we're
and my
getting
wife.
into the
What
law
is
of
it about
attraction
mac
here.
and cheese? I mean, I honestly don't understand that one. I remember having mac and cheese when I was a kid, but
Okay,
what is
no,
it?
no, no, no. You didn't have gourmet mac and cheese though. You had Kraft out of the box. That's the difference.
Well, that doesn't even count as food. It's more like plastic. But
That's what I'm saying. That's why
Uh,
what
you're
is it?
not enthusiastic about mac and cheese.
So what is gourmet mac and cheese like? I mean, what do you
Gourmet
make that
mac
with?
and cheese is
it's
like,
really
well, first
different.
you got your mac, but then you have like different types of cheeses. So sometimes there's Gruyere cheese, there's you can put brie in there, you can put uh, obviously
Swiss.
cheddar, Swiss, any kind of cheese. And sometimes there's bacon,
Okay,
sometimes,
I'm sold.
Sometimes
right?
there's chocolate. No,
Sometimes there's lobster.
lobster.
Yeah. Lobster mac and cheese is
Okay,
my favorite. So,
lobster mac and cheese. I have
yes.
to admit, that's a use of lobster I had never heard of.
Oh
That's brand
yes,
new
it's
for me.
it's famous down over on the Cape, let me tell you, because
Is it
that's
really?
yeah,
I
almost every
didn't
restaurant carries it.
really. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Obviously, I don't get over to the Cape often enough, but oh my
Yes.
goodness. Well, now I'm completely derailed. What were we doing here? Oh, we're doing a podcast. That's right. Oh my goodness. So yes, getting back to the original message, if you have any questions about applying the law of attraction in your life, or maybe you're running into scenarios that are a little challenging or whatever, by all means, type your questions in if you're listening to the live stream in the Facebook group. And we usually get some pretty good questions each day, but those questions become the basis for what we're going to talk about. And we've had some, like we had one day this week where the questions were really, really philosophical nature, very theological, very
Hmm.
spiritual in nature. We've had let's see, we had one day where a lot of the questions were about relationships and how the various issues people run into with relationships. So the themes
Hmm.
have kind of gone all over the place. I remember about a week ago we had virtually all the questions were about attracting money. And that
Hmm.
makes it fun too. But it really doesn't matter whether or not everybody's questions are the same. It's just, we get the conversation going. We find out which way the trend is going. That becomes fun too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, so let's see. Anybody typing? No, it's quiet today. Wow. Never
Everybody's
tried
sleeping.
lobster. Deidre. Oh, Deidre. Oh, Deidre's responding to Nasha. Never tried lobster. Yeah. Well, I can understand because Nasha's.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. She's not in
That's
the right
that's
kind of the
something you
world.
got to do in
Part of
life.
the world for lobster. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have to live near cold water
That's true. That's true.
because she lives in more of a tropical type climate, and you're not going to find a whole
Mm,
lot of lobster there.
yeah.
But oh yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah, it
It
is.
is really delicious. Um, so let's see. Well, since there are no questions coming, maybe we can just start addressing stuff going on in our lives. It's kind of interesting, which is going to be kind of hard for us to do because none of us are particularly awake this morning. But
I'm awake. I'm up now.
Yeah,
oh, you are.
I'm
You
awake
woke
now.
up. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
I'm
All
I
right,
awake
wake
Tom.
up
again.
like that. It's not an issue.
And Tom actually is more of an excuse because he's 2 hours behind us, so he should be even more sleepy than we are. But
Right.
hey, I give you credit, Tom. You're doing good.
I've been working on getting up early lately because I've got a project I'm working on, so I like working in the morning. Um,
Oh, okay.
it's a new routine I'm trying anyway.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, good for
Sleeping
you. That's
less
great.
and getting up early, and then I take a nap during the day.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
You got to get your sleep
Okay.
in.
Yeah,
It's
that's
supposed to
good.
be it's supposed to be a great way to connect with your subconscious or the dream realm. is if you
Yeah.
get up earlier, yeah, and then take a nap later on. And anyway, I'm giving it a try.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be
Very
pretty
good.
cool. Yeah.
Is it working? I mean, you said you're
Yeah,
doing it, you're working on a project, so is it like stimulating the creative juices to be up early each day?
I think it does. It really does because I'm sitting there, like at 5 a.m. and working on my stuff, and I feel like I don't know. I just feel focused. I don't know. It's just different. I think I don't feel drawn to go to the kitchen and snack and things like that. I just feel
Hmm.
focused. I just stay in one place and work. And it feels like I'm also there is some access to something more from the unconscious. I feel like it's coming through at that time. So
Wow.
I'm just beginning to experiment with it. But yeah, I read a whole bunch about it in the book by Seth,
Oh,
Seth,
okay.
who were these entities like Abraham that were channeled back in the 70s by Jane Roberts. And they talk a lot about that, the power of sleeping less
Mm-hmm.
and being up during those wee hours of the morning, that how much you will plug into your dream time while you're awake. In other words, you don't, they say you lose so much sleeping that humans right now don't understand how much of their essence as human beings they lose by sleeping. They said if you would understand to sleep only 4 or 5 or 6 hours and then take a nap later, you would start to find out the stuff that you're denying yourself by being asleep because you can't remember your dreams. And they said, but that's all kinds of wonderful information is coming to you from that whole other realm, and that we're actually meant to live much more in that realm than we do. But
Hmm.
we've moved away from that as human beings. We think we're supposed to have these really long blocks of sleep and these really long blocks of being awake. They said that's not how you're designed. So I'm trying that out. I'm trying to see, okay, what's it like if I get up after 4 hours? So I've done that a number of times in the last couple of weeks, and I really like it. It's fascinating because I'm really trying to learn from my dreams.
Hmm.
Well, it makes me wonder, is there something wrong with me? Because
Oh yeah.
I do feel better whenever I sleep a longer night. Well, yeah, we know there's something wrong with me. That's
That wasn't the question.
that's a given.
I'm kidding.
But I mean, no, beyond that, I don't like to nap. Cindy and I have talked about this, Cindy Chavez, because neither one of us are
Oh,
really nappers.
uh-huh.
And the reason is when I wake up from a nap, I feel like I feel this morning. Normally, I don't feel like this in the morning. Normally I'm just alert and alive and ready to go. This morning, I'm just feeling groggy and kind of weighed down and so forth. And that's exactly how I feel after a nap. So the
Hmm.
prospect of me going to sleep, getting what seems like not enough sleep so that I can take a
Yeah.
nap later on that I'm going to wake up groggy from, this is not an enticing prospect for me. This
I
doesn't
see.
feel
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
So
Well,
yeah,
I'm
you
yeah.
gotta
wondering, what
get
am I supposed to
you
do?
gotta get out of that mentality that it's not enough sleep.
I guess.
Because that's what happened to me. Because with my insomnia, I just switched over to I'm a napper. I don't sleep. I just nap.
Oh.
Yeah. And they say most animals, this is what Seth was saying, most animals have that natural rhythm and they
Hmm.
live, and so they take maximum advantage of what life has to offer them in terms of biological rhythms by
Mm,
following, sleeping when they want to sleep and
right.
waking when they want to be awake. So I don't know, it's something to play with maybe, but if it's too hard, it's too hard.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because it's right in tune with what Abraham tells us. I mean, Abraham has actually said point blank, they think that we should be sleeping more than 2 hours a night.
Two. Wow.
Two.
That's what
Yeah,
I do.
That's, do
that's what
you?
you do.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you nap a
That's it.
lot?
I don't nap a lot. That's the thing. I call
Wow.
I call what I do napping because it's only 2 hours. So
But you seem so alert and chipper. Did you only sleep 2 hours last night?
yeah,
Wow. It's because you
actually
can't
less
What do you
than
sleep.
do the
that
rest of the night?
because I went to bed at 6 a.m. So I got up at
Wow.
7:30.
Wow. Dang, girl. I don't know how you do that.
I just got used to it. It's just at
Yeah.
first it was really hard and it was debilitating. Like I was going crazy. I didn't know what was going on. And then eventually I was just like, I don't sleep, so I'm over it. Tired of trying.
Hmm. Well, you're right in tune with all these disembodied beings who are speaking to us,
Absolutely.
who say that you guys don't need all that sleep.
Well, that's why
Maybe,
they call us the sleepless elite.
Ah, okay.
maybe we should be asking you, Alex, who are you receiving? Because you're right?
I don't know. There's a lot of people up there. I don't
A
know.
lot of people. A little crowded, huh?
It's a little crowded.
Well, Alyx, do you have psychic experiences?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're
Hey,
plugged into that other realm?
Partially.
Partially. You're
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah.
we have our first question from Nasha, who's one of our regular listeners. She says, "Could you elaborate more on waking up early?" That's an interesting question. I like that.
I
I'm not
feel
sure
like
you're
when
even
Nasha
qualified to
asks
answer
questions, I feel like when Nasha asks questions, I'm just like, just do it. Like,
that.
like what's the problem?
Well, I'm not even sure you're qualified to answer the question because you're already
Oh,
awake. You've been awake all
exactly.
night.
Yeah. But no, seriously, just set your alarm and just, slowly. I mean, you could transition yourself into awake like by setting like 5-minute alarms and then fully waking up and then, starting your day. But just do it earlier and earlier as the weeks go by.
Yeah, sleep during the time period that you feel most inclined to sleep, but
Hmm.
then, you know, try to wake up after say 4 or 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
And and that's what Seth recommends is that 4, 5, 6 or 7 hours. I mean, 7 seems like a lot. Excuse me. But I've been trying 4 and 5, and 4 seems difficult right now, but 5 it's a lot more doable. And
Hmm.
then the little nap, if I really feel like I want it. Sometimes I'm wiped out, and there's no way I'm sleeping 4 hours. You know, I end up sleeping 8 hours. I used to
Yeah.
always sleep 8 or 9, but I like to play with the idea of waking up and being receptive. I've loved what they said about the fact that you're literally plugging into the dream time, but you're awake. So you get the value of the unconscious while you're conscious. I'm
Hmm.
really excited to see what does that mean. Like I'm sure that I kind of know what that means, but I'm experimenting.
Yeah.
What
It's
have
an
you found
interesting
out so far?
concept.
What have I found out?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
I
you've
found
experimented
I
with different
found
things.
out that there's something that always wakes me up anyway around almost always around 4 a.m. And when I wake up, usually I got to pee or something, but then almost invariably I have a psychic experience in the sense that I feel like a bunch of downloads are happening of wisdom about my life is coming to me at that time. So I often will just sort of very casually lay in bed and check out what shows up because this stuff just seems to come to me like realizations about my life and about things I'm doing, and sometimes like really mind blowing, like, oh my God, I see all these connections, to things like, oh yeah, I had that conversation with that person and that person and that person that was all about this one subject that I've been in denial of. And then I start
Hmm.
seeing it and I get a light shined on it. And
Of
so
course.
I get awakened. So I figured if I write my material from my workshops during that time period, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm writing the material for my workshops during the time of 4 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Hmm.
And I've noticed that I think I'm particularly keenly tuned to my inner wisdom at that time, to being receptive to messages that might come to me. So, and I meditate during that time too, which is really a cool thing to do during that time period of 4 to 7. Take
Nasha,
take an hour and meditate or
Nasha
something.
is elaborating on her questions
Okay.
because she's also asking. Well, she says I'm sleepless as well. She hasn't slept yet, but she takes a sleeping aid because she can't sleep without medicine, and she
Yeah.
wants to know. You have the same situation,
Yeah.
right, Alex? Yeah.
Yeah. I take
So
many sleep aids.
many sleep
Wow.
aids. Okay.
Many
Hopefully
sleep
She's
aids.
not.
wow.
But she also wants to know how it affects dream time. She says the dream time, I think she means it comes when you're awake. Could you please elaborate on this about dreams? Because Tom, you actually mentioned something about dreaming, and I guess what Seth had to say about taking advantage of dreaming. But talk about that. What's that about?
Well, in my opinion, dreams are who we really are. They are. There's a lot of indigenous cultures who believe that when you're that we're dreaming 24/7. But
Mm-hmm.
this is our what we call our waking dream right now. But that connection to all those things that show up in dreams, the archetypes, the different, you know, amazing things that happen in dreams are our real nature. That's who we really are. And so if we sleep less, we plug in more to that realm while we're awake. It's always there. You know, it's never not there. And lately I've started to, when I am asleep, before I go to sleep, I ask for remembering my dreams. And I keep
Mm.
a journal. I keep a journal next to my bed with
Oh,
a
you
pen.
do?
Yeah, and I have the whole journal right here, and I write almost one dream a night in this, you know, that comes, and then I go through and read them, and I look for things that pop out at me, trends and things like that. And so many times the dreams are incredibly showing me exactly what's going on in my life. I'm seeing a therapist right now, and every week I come to her with another dream, and we go deep into what it is I'm learning from that dream. And they're just
Mm-hmm.
unfolding, you know, this whole way of understanding who I am and what I'm on this planet to do. And I love that sense, you know, that I'm really starting to understand how life is talking to me in all these different ways.
So what kinds of
So,
messages have you gotten? You said you're starting to see patterns. So what kinds of
mhm.
insights have you gotten out of it?
Well, like I've been looking at creating this group coaching workshop, and in looking at that, I'm trying to create the modules for the workshop. And like for example, the other night, my dream was about being in this facility out in the desert, and this group of people had told me that I wasn't ready yet to be initiated into their group, and they sent me to this bunkhouse. And I get in the bunkhouse, and there's all these little projects that I'm supposed to do. And as I do each project and complete it, I realize that I have all these abilities on each project that I didn't know I had. And
Mm-hmm.
then even in the dream, I started realizing, you know, these are the modules of my workshop. And it's showing me that the doubt that I have in myself is unwarranted, and that I need to understand that I have the natural ability to create the things that I want to create. So it gave me this whole sense of inner confidence. And I also realized that the sense of having to please these people that were trying to initiate me into their group was not something that really mattered that much. I don't have to please people in my workshops. I just have to do the thing that feels creative to me. So I got this whole message about the way I was looking at doing my creative work, and I felt really grateful about that. Or the other night, I had a dream about my relationships to my family and friends, and realizing that I didn't have to struggle to keep my relationships intact. The dream showed me that I could have more of a digital relationship with my friends. I could be more trusting of the relationship I have with them, instead of trying as hard as I try to keep my friendships alive. And these come in beautiful symbolic ways, you know, that show me
Mm-hmm.
a lot more than just that. You know, they're dreams. You can go into them again and again. You can even go back and continue a dream just by willing to do so. You know, you can go talk to characters from your dreams and ask them, why are you here in my dream? What is it that you're trying to tell me? There's amazing things you can do with dreams. There's an institute here in Colorado. I did a 12-day vision quest with them, and their whole thing is dreams, and they can take one dream and work on it for 12 days. One person's dream, the whole group can work on it and go into that dream and talk to different characters, and the whole group will learn things in a group conscious field. So they're fascinating ways to work with who you are and what you're here to do, and you know how you relate to other people, everything. It's
Mm,
a beautiful
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
that's interesting. I mean, you're clearly getting a lot out of it. A
Mm-hmm.
couple questions have come up here. Deidre's asking for a little bit more information about Seth. She wants to find some more information about Seth, and obviously the easy thing to look for is Seth Speaks, because that's usually in most cases that's the titles of the books. But can you talk a little bit more about who Seth is, Tom? Give it a little more clear idea.
Well, Seth is something like Abraham, if you know who Abraham is, but they're apparently entities, and it's unknown from when we're in this realm, in this 3D realm, what they mean by its entities that exist in the unseen realm. But they spoke in the 70s through this woman, Jane Roberts, who lived back east somewhere. And she just would channel the words of these entities that call themselves Seth, would speak through her about understandings about life coming from the unseen realm that were full of wisdom and full of insight. Very interesting stuff. And so there was a number of books that were dictated by Seth through Jane Roberts. And she speaks in a really dramatic voice, when she
Yeah.
channels Seth. It's like, we think that it's like this.
I am preaching to you.
Yeah. But I love the content of it. I don't like listening to her do it, but some of the stuff you can find on YouTube, it's not just her speaking. If you can stand to listen to her speaking, it's the same stuff. But I like reading it too. So I ordered a book. I just have one of them. There's a number of Seth Speaks books that address different topics, but they're very lengthy and very in-depth. It's good stuff. I like it. But it's a little, as Abraham would say, it was for its time. So it's, like Abraham says, the message that we're plugging into from the unseen realm is actually a constantly morphing thing that really only exists in this time and space, right here and right now. But I get a lot going back and reading this old stuff, just like you could go back and read Lao Tzu, or you could go back and read, the teachings of Buddha or the teachings of Jesus and still get a lot out of it. But Abraham's always making the point that, but that's yesterday's news. And so what's really happening that matters the most to us right here and right now is what we're channeling right here and right now. So this podcast, is greater than the works of Buddha and Jesus and everyone.
Boy, are we absorbed.
Are we self-absorbed? No.
My head just get larger and larger.
But no, there is such a thing as a group field of consciousness that we're plugging into right now, and all of our listeners and everyone. So if we, really open up to that, there's a lot of wisdom right here, right now, that is exactly what we need to be hearing.
And that is a cool concept. I remember I think it was last spring or early summer, Tom, you and I tried to do a few episodes on some of the Seth stuff, and it was so deep. I mean, you said it was deep. You underestimated it when you said it was deep. It was like fathoms deep.
It was like molasses.
Trying to get through it.
Trying to walk through molasses.
Oh,
but it was good. But I tired of it quickly because of that. It was so thick. But it's so funny, Walt, because I went back and was reading it. I had what I thought was a possible heart attack happening on Saturday. So I went and checked myself into the emergency room. And while I was there for 5 hours, all I took with me was the Seth book. And it turned out they couldn't find anything wrong with me, but I was having this really intense chest pain that was just killing me. So I thought, well, that's a good reason to go to the emergency room, and I didn't want to because it cost $7,000, and I felt like, hopefully insurance will cover it. But the whole time I was there hooked up to all the monitors, I was just reading Seth. And it was fantastic. It was like, and they were even talking all about the medical profession while I was there. I just happened to be reading this huge section where they were, showing you what your relationship was to the medical profession. And it was amazing that it was exactly, everything I read was exactly what I needed during those 5 hours. It was just, and it wasn't thick at all. It wasn't deep. It wasn't like walking through molasses. It was just clear, beautiful, channeling directly to me. So it made me want to come home and read more.
Is that because you were in that environment? You were already in a mindset of needing medical care. Did that make it clearer, do you think?
I think no. I just think that life is always giving us exactly what we need if we're open to it.
Oh, okay.
And it just happened to be that's exactly what I need. I had the intuition to take that book with me, which I hadn't read since we were reading it on the podcast. So it just was my intuition, and it turned out to be the perfect input I needed during that time period.
Well, that ties into a question that Nasha asked, because she says, and I think she was actually referring to the dream and sleep cycle but it also applies here too. She says, in either of these realms, are we more receptive uh, to the law of attraction in these cases? In other words, the way she says it is, are we more receptive as to the law of attraction, as in manifesting it well? So in other words, when we're in sleep cycles that are short sleep cycles, is that contributing to our ability to manifest, do you think? And similarly, when we're dealing with stuff where the universe gave us things that were at the right time and place, like you just described, is that something that's contributing to helping us manifest better as well?
Alex, you want to answer that?
I think you're manifesting 24/7 whether you want to or not. So I would say yeah.
So it doesn't actually do anything to make it even more enhanced. It's just that's like this is normal. This is 24 hours a day. So we just, this is one more example of how we're doing it.
Well, I think that's the thing that. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I was gonna say I could see how you would think that, in the dream state you're more concentrated on what you want, but I feel like you're in your dream state you're more concentrated on what you need. So it's not so much as, oh, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna dream about the perfect guy that I want. It's probably gonna be a dream about, I don't know, what you want for breakfast because that's what your body needs.
Okay.
I
What
think,
were you going to say, Tom?
well, the reason I'm doing all this stuff I'm doing with only sleeping 4 or 5 hours and then trying to tap into my unconscious during my waking stuff, and why I write my dreams down is because I really believe that I'm here to listen to what I call my soul, and that we all have something that's called a soul. It's like it's our own inner guide, and I can't even separate it from my other guides that might exist in the unseen realm, nor from you guys actually. But what is my soul? Well, I mean, we're all connected as
Yeah.
you know, we're all connected to the infinite consciousness, and we're all just downloading it all the time. The question is whether or not we recognize it and really listen carefully, and we're actually attentive. So I decided I want my whole life now to be guided by the thing that I call my soul, and I realized that plugging into the dream time, into my dreams, and that when the veils are thinner between this realm and the fifth dimension and the fourth dimension, that then I can plug in more to what I'm actually about as an infinite being, and that's all that matters to me. I just want to know, what is my infinite self trying to do here in this realm,
Hmm.
so the work I want to do, the relationships I want to have, everything that I think about myself, I want all that to be coming from my soul's agenda, which I believe is really full of wisdom. So that's why I want to plug in that way.
Okay, that's good.
I don't want to just feel.
Nash is really coming with the questions today, so I'm going to see if I can combine a few of them together and give us something to talk about. First of all, she was asking about the time duration for sleeping, because we have mentioned a few different ones. I mean, Abraham says like a couple hours. Tom, you've been saying like 4 to 5 hours. Alex, she if she sleeps at all, it's like an hour to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So,
And that she
so
has to do with the sleeping aids. That's
yeah,
tough, Alec. That's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah,
You don't even need to sleep, do you? It's like,
I
you
don't.
know, wow, that's amazing.
So,
Yeah.
so what's the recommended amount of sleep time then? I mean, Alex, what would you recommend to somebody? How much sleep do you think the average person should get?
Well, I say a lot of the sleepless elite people like me um function on under 4 hours. I mean, I don't recommend it for everybody, but like a lot of smart and successful people are sleep less than 4 hours a day. Like Martha Stewart is famous for sleeping like 3 hours a day. Um, I can't remember who else I can think of, but yeah, I do know a lot of smart and successful people. P. Diddy is another one who sleeps less than a couple hours a day. So,
Hmm. Wow.
It's really interesting because I remember my sister went through something where she was sleepless for long periods of time and she was becoming psychotic because of it. I mean, literally,
in the
it was
beginning,
affecting
you
her,
can,
function,
yeah.
which
Well,
is
you
kind
get
of a scary
used to it.
prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
So,
it's your it's the way you interpret things. Like your body just doesn't know how to handle all the information that's coming in
hmm.
Which you know a lot about it because you have Asperger's. I mean, you're dealing with that issue all the time.
all the time, 24/7.
What does that mean? That mean you're downloading a lot of information all the time, or?
Well, I don't know how to process what I download because it's I my brain doesn't have the tools.
So what kind of stuff do you get?
Um I mean, simple things like people's facial expression. Okay, for instance, me and my therapist were talking yesterday about how to end a conversation. I don't understand how to end a conversation. Like it just doesn't. I don't know when the conversation ends or when it's my turn to just walk away or stop talking or whether it be via text or via, face to face. I just
Hmm.
don't know how to do that.
Hmm.
See,
So
that's the advantage
there's
of doing a podcast, Alex. When you do a podcast, if you have it as a 1 hour podcast, you have a time limit. Now you know when to
yeah.
end it. It's very
It's like,
simple.
okay, the hour's up. I gotta go. Yeah, that time constructs work for me.
I can understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
I would even argue many times conversations don't end; they just get continued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens on Facebook all the time. People having conversations. Check back in to see what happened with the conversation I was last having 5 hours ago.
Right.
It's the endless conversation.
Yeah.
Or they also have the thing, and I've never really explored the feature very much, but Facebook has that feature where you basically are telling your story, and your story is endless. Every
Hmm.
time that you add to it, it just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. So when does the story end? Well, when you stop breathing. I mean,
Yeah.
it just goes
Yeah.
on and on, and even
Basically.
then, apparently, it doesn't stop. So
And
I
there's
can
so many
understand.
different ways to look at everything,
Hmm.
Mm,
right? I mean, you could write something from a different perspective. They say that's true of a dream, that you can approach dreams just from endless variety of ways that you can get value out of a dream.
Hmm.
Um, I worked with a shaman in New Mexico. He used for 12 days. He used four different myths, the really ancient myths. One Native American because he was Native American, and then several from ancient Europe. And he did that for 12 days, lecturing 5 or 6 hours a day on just these four myths, and never ended the ways he could interpret those myths and see, like amazing insights that were mind blowing. Because he was a genius, and but I'm sure he became a genius from spending a lot of time in that other realm.
yeah,
As
yeah.
shaman tend to do, they spend a lot of time in the dream. That's what a shaman does. He goes into the dream time and
Hmm.
brings back wisdom for his people that he's working with. And
And by the way, we are getting other people in the chat here talking about how they have short sleep periods.
oh
And
wow,
I think it was,
Yay.
yeah,
be in
I think
Alex's club.
Yep.
Deidre was saying that I think we should sleep whatever amount we need to still feel healthy, right? And I think
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's essentially true, really.
that's the way I
Yep.
look at it. Yeah, you got to feel healthy.
Yeah. So, I mean, lately, I've been in the long sleep club for like the last couple months, much to my surprise, actually, because historically, over the last 20 years or so, I was pretty much like 5, 6 hours of sleep. Now I'm getting like 8 to 9, and I wake up and I say, it's the same thing every morning. Like, what happened? Where did the night go? So yeah, I definitely I do have the alarm set for doing the morning podcast because I want to make sure I never
Hmm.
miss that. But
Right.
normally I'm not even an alarm person, so I'm just going with whatever I need to do. And
Hmm.
and for the longest time, I was waking up well before the alarm, so I never even heard the alarm. I just
Yeah.
was waking up when I needed to wake up. Actually, waking up to an alarm is kind of a different thing for me these days. I haven't done
Yeah,
that since I was in my 20s.
yeah, I
Yeah.
hate
Same
that.
thing for me. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't like alarms at all,
Yeah, I try to
but
avoid.
sometimes you have to use one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just you do what you have to do. That's why I use I use the alarm in my iPhone, and I use the sound setting called chimes. So it's like having little wind chimes in the background, very gentle
Yeah,
way to wake me up.
yeah,
I can
that's
handle
better.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
See,
even
mine's
with that,
opposite. Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, even with that, when the chimes go off, there's a little tinkling sound. I'm instantly awake and reach over. I gotta turn that off. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, my alarm's the opposite. I have a hip hop song going on. So it's not jarring though, so it's like I
well, you
have
don't
it
go to
set.
sleep. I'm not surprised.
Well, I have the alarm set for the 8 a.m. podcast because otherwise I'll
Mhm.
be like, what was I gonna do this morning? Oh no, it's 8:30. So
Oh,
I
that's
have to have it set for that. So I have it set for 7:30, but I have it set so like that it starts off at a low volume and then slowly increases.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good. Nashi, I was also asking, does antidepressant block manifesting our stuff later? Since I'm kind of numb most of the time, and is Prozac dangerous? Now, we're not medical people, Nasha, so that's the thing I have to say first and foremost. So we can't give you a medical opinion, but we can give you a non-medical opinion. We have lots of those. So, I mean, Alex, you're probably the one who's most familiar with medications because you talked about how you're on a number of them that you deal with yourself.
Yeah.
But what's your experience? I mean, do you think that antidepressants actually can reduce our ability to manifest, for instance?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Why
Because
is that?
when you're totally numb, like it keeps you from feeling depressed, but it also keeps you from feeling truly joyful.
Hmm.
So you're numb to all feelings because they just don't want you to, you know, have any feelings at all.
Hmm.
So there's no way to manifest good or bad because you're not feeling anything.
But as you pointed out, we're manifesting 24/7.
I mean,
So,
yeah, that's true. But I mean, like actually, not physically manifesting, but like, what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Consciously?
actively manifesting. You know,
Yeah.
it's harder to do when on medications for depression and stuff like that because you're numb.
Yeah.
what Abraham called deliberate creation.
Yeah.
Seth addresses it in their books. They say that medications are definitely can put a lid on and a damper on your ability to receive from the dream realm. You know, to receive
Hmm.
your soul's messages because you're just, I guess, yeah, like what Alex said, you just that part of you is kind of dumb, is numbed.
Yeah.
And then Nasha also has a really, really basic question, and we're going to get some really varied answers here, I'm sure. What time? Well, she was asking, actually, she was listening to one of the other listeners, I think. Well, I don't know. She's asking, what time do you go to sleep?
What time do I go to sleep? I go to sleep whenever I can get to sleep. If I don't fall asleep by 2:30 a.m., I give up. And then, and then I have a morning schedule. So like my one of my best friends moved to Japan, so she's 13 hours, well, now, so with daylight savings, 14 hours ahead of me. So the only time we can talk is 5 a.m. my time.
Ah,
So yeah, so at 5 a.m. I'm on the phone for about an hour, and then 6 o'clock I might fall asleep, or I might just get up for the day.
Hmm. Wow. The
so
night
once
is
again, there
yours.
appears to be no rules. I mean,
There's
everybody,
no rules. There's no rules.
there's no.
Well,
Get it when you can.
there is recommendations out there that I've
Get
noticed.
in where
Like I'm
you fit
working.
in.
What's that?
Get in where you fit in.
Get in where you fit in. I'm working with a coach now who's a body worker who's highly respected for her work, and she said she's recommending to our class right now that we go to sleep by 10 p.m. Um,
Hmm.
and because the sleep that you get before midnight is supposed to be so much more rejuvenating for your being than the sleep if you go to sleep after midnight. So
Hmm.
that extra time from 10 until midnight is particularly good according to her. And so I've been trying to go to bed by 10 a.m. I usually get to sleep about 10:30 or 11. So I get 1 hour before midnight, and then I get about 3 or 4 hours, get up at about 4 or 5 a.m. And I
Hmm.
find that's a really good rhythm for me. But sometimes I'm so wiped out, like you said, Walt, I have to sleep 7, 8, or 9 hours. I'm
Mm.
just too, I have to. It's just my body's telling me to. So I just listen
Yeah.
to what my body says. But I'm developing this new pattern of sleeping less and then doing the snap during the day just to see, like I said, what'll happen.
Well, that's why I keep wondering and thinking about why it is people have different numbers of hours that they sleep and apparently widely divergent. I mean, we have on the one hand Alex sleeping an hour, and then you have me sleeping 9 to 10 hours some nights. And it's just like, whoa, huge range there. Well, not only that, I mean, I talked about briefly how my sister was actually psychotic because she was getting so little sleep at one point in
Mhm.
her life, and with medication, she was able to get that ironed out. But I remember one time. Now, this is a while ago. This was back just after Louise and I married. We actually did our honeymoon in two parts. In the second part, we went to Barbados. This was in 2000. And the trip to Barbados, we had a very early flight. Um,
Mhm.
I think it was a 6 a.m. flight, and anyone who has ever gone through an airport knows if you're going to leave at 6 a.m., it basically means you want to arrive at like 4 or 5 or something like
Right.
that, which
4.
means you're getting up at 3,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
so we got up at like 3 o'clock, and the worst part was we had set the alarm, but we were so afraid we were going to miss the alarm that we didn't even sleep well. So I think
Right.
we each got like
Yeah.
an hour to 2 hours worth of sleep.
Yeah. I hate that.
We got up, we went to the airport, got onto the plane, and so forth. And well, actually, before we got onto the plane, we found that our connecting flight had been canceled, and so they
Oh
had to reschedule
no.
some other flight. Um, they said, well, you got two options. You can either take this first flight in about 4 or 5 hours, or you can take a flight now to Miami, and then you'll have like an 8 hour layover, and then you'll fly on to Barbados from there. And my wife to this day regrets the fact that she said, "Oh, I want to go. Let's just go to Miami." What we should have done is turned around and gone back home, taken a nap, been totally refreshed, and we'd been fine. Instead, we got on the plane, flew to Miami, and arrived in Miami International Airport. And of course, now we have this 8 hour layover. We go
Yeah.
Mhm.
to the what do they call it, the pilot's lounge. There's like a lounge that pilots like to frequent. And in fact, she has a family member who was a pilot for many years and recommended that if you're ever stuck in an airport for whatever reason, go to this particular, I think they call it the Sky Lounge because they have the most
Yeah.
comfortable chairs, you know. So we went to the Sky Lounge. Now I am 6 foot 8 inches tall, right? So I'm pretty tall, like 203 centimeters.
Way tall.
And yeah, very tall. And here I am. I am so tired. I'm so sleep deprived. I got into one of these little chairs, very comfortable chairs, but they're for sitting in, and I curled up as small as I could get in these chairs. I put my head down and I slept for about 3 or 4 hours. My wife is absolutely astonished that I was able to do that. It was the most uncomfortable sleep that I could possibly get, but I had no choice. It was either that or I was going to have to just get down on the cement floor and fall asleep on the floor because I was so wiped out, you know?
Yeah.
So I think about that experience and I say to myself, what happens if you're doing a short sleep schedule and you really need to have more than that? I mean, I think you can actually do yourself some damage doing that. My sister experienced that for sure. And yet,
Mhm.
Alex, you talk about how you're. I mean, it's clear every time that we talk to you, you're fine. I mean, you're a little bit crazy at times, but you're fine.
Yeah, but back in the beginning when I first started having trouble sleeping, I was definitely going through some psychosis.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Mhm.
How did that manifest? What I mean, like, were you going around and screaming at people or something, or what was
Oh,
it?
I was very irritable, and then I would switch from not sleeping to like sleeping for days. And
Really?
then, yeah, I would go for like 3 days of not sleeping to passing out for like 2 days. And then it was insane.
Wow. Sleep is, I mean, well, the other thing I think about too, I mean, Tom, you're talking about how you keep your sleep journal and you're writing down dreams from every single night, which takes some time to do, by the way.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you ran into this too, because the first few nights you try to do it and you can't remember any dreams, and you have to kind of stick with it for a while before you start remembering them, and then you can write them down. But that that process of writing your dreams in order to get messages out of them, get information out of them, it almost kind of flies in the face of what Abraham talks about. Because Abraham talks about the dream cycle being just you kind of flushing out the stuff you don't need anymore. And yet you have
Yeah.
Seth saying, well, this is where you're going to get all your great information. So that's also really confusing. Like we're getting conflicting messages. Which is it? Is
Yeah.
this stuff, or is this the garbage that we have to take out?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why I don't agree with the Abraham stuff because I've studied dreams so much and I've had so much amazing experience with them. And right now it's literally changing my life every week. I mean, I'm literally changing day by day from the dreams that are happening and getting wonderful insights. So I don't know why they say, why they put down dreams so much. And I know that it's what Abraham says is a reflection, I think, of what Esther feels about things. So it's Abraham's channeling through Esther, and Esther, I think, is a very strong-willed personality. I don't think she believes that way about dreams, and so it comes through that way,
Mm.
And so, and maybe also they're speaking to people who need to hear what they're saying at the time, and so.
Well, they also say something else fascinating. They say that when you're asleep, you're not manifesting because you're not consciously aware. That the only time that you can be truly manifesting is when you're consciously aware. And they don't clarify whether they mean deliberate creation or just default creation. They're simply saying that because you're not conscious, your thought process isn't going, so you can't actually manifest anything. But there are others who say exactly the opposite. Once again,
Yeah, because how is your thought process stopped if you're dreaming?
and I don't know, I don't even understand what a dream. I took a course in sleep and dreams when I was in college, and the course
Hmm.
taught that if you have less than 4 hours sleep, you're going to be psychotic. Clearly, you're not psychotic, Alex. You're a little crazy. You're not psychotic. So
You keep saying that, Paul.
well, I say it in an endearing way because I love her for her craziness. I mean, that's why we have
What
comedians.
did you say
That's
that
why we
was
have
crazy,
comedians.
Alex? I've never heard you say anything crazy.
You hear it all the time. Anything that she says is funny is crazy. That
Oh,
means you're crazy.
crazy, crazy good. Yeah,
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 crazy good.
crazy good. That's crazy good.
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. But my point is, I mean, I can take everything that I was taught in that sleep course, and
Hmm.
admittedly, this was, like, what, 40 years ago, something like that, and I can just throw it out the window because when
Well,
I
things have
compare it to what
changed
I
in
hear,
40 years.
well, the sleep hasn't changed that much, has it? I mean, it's
Apparently it has.
so everybody back in like 1979, 1980 needed to have 4 hours sleep, but then that changed because Congress passed a law or something. I don't know.
You know what happens to a lot of elderly is that they sleep less and less as they get older.
Yeah,
That's
that's
very common,
yeah.
and according to the stuff that I've been hearing, in fact, I think Seth talked about that. They said it's a sign of they're getting ready to move into that realm
Mm,
where sleep isn't even an issue because when you
mm.
leave your body, sleep is no longer, sleep is about being here in a body, duh.
Right.
But and there is something about its rejuvenating properties, obviously, but there's something else going on that's much more significant to who we are and to our soul than just rejuvenating our body.
I'm looking at to see if there are any questions coming in. Lots of conversation, which is I'm loving this. Not only do we converse here on the podcast, but the listeners who are listening to the live stream are conversing too in the chat. So there's like these
It's good.
multiple conversations going on all around
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
topic.
yeah.
It's
Get the
really really
It's
cool.
awesome.
conversation going.
Yeah,
That's great.
absolutely. I'm not seeing any real questions coming in here, but uh, let's see. Now she just punched. Now it's just more interesting conversation about. Oh, now she's talking about the stuff that she sees in her dreams.
I was gonna say
Wow.
what I see in
Cool.
my dreams. In the few hours that I get, it's either great ideas like I have in the shower, or it's visits from dead relatives.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Hmm.
No,
Well, you're plugged into
I've
your
had that,
ancestors.
and
Yeah.
it's freaked the heck out of me because I didn't have it as a dream so much. Well, I did have that. I had a dream where I met my father shortly after he passed, but
Hmm.
I did have one instance, and to this day I'm really not sure who and or what it was, but in the middle of the night, I'm going to say 2 or 3 in the morning, something like that. I was in
Hmm.
that halfway sleep, like
Yeah.
first level of dream sleep, not quite actually dreaming, but lightly asleep, that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden, I had this impression of this face coming right into my face
Hmm.
Mm.
and saying very loudly, "Hello." And I bolted sitting up, like, what the hell was that? And my wife was fast asleep. She says, what? What? I said it again. What the hell was that?
Wow.
And she says, what the hell was what? And I said, there, and I described what had happened.
Wow.
And to this day, we really have no idea. Was it a relative? Was it somebody I knew? I mean, we kind of wondered maybe it was somebody who was non-physical who was trying to learn how to lower their vibration to communicate with us in the physical, which would suggest like a
Yeah.
relative, somebody I knew, and just hadn't really learned to do it very well yet.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Because it freaked me out like crazy.
Totally possible.
To this day,
Yeah,
I have no idea.
I had a friend who went to Africa, and he was going there to do work with a shaman, and he said that in these little villages in Africa that he would go to, people, they greet each other, and all the ancestors that come with each person are literally there, like, and
Mm.
they can see them. A
Hmm.
lot of African people can see their other ancestors, and they can tell you when you walk up to them what the ancestors want, are trying to tell you, because they're attached to you all the time. And that's a huge part of doing dream work, is to get in touch with your ancestors, because you need to be in touch with your ancestors.
Hmm.
Of course, I only ask for the ancestors that have good messages. I
Well,
don't
I
want
was just
Yeah.
gonna say,
I don't want the
there's
ones that with the murderers and the rapists, and well, I'm sure they have a message too that could be helpful, but I really, I only ask. I don't want to be freaked out and spooked, like you were saying, Walt. I want the ones that have beautiful messages that'll help me in my life, But apparently
Right.
they're right there, and they want to help us a lot, and we have to ask them. We have to invite them to help us. But they have a
uh,
lot of wisdom to give to
there are a
us.
lot of people who would say, I don't want Uncle Fester to contact me. I didn't like him when he was alive. I don't want him when he's dead. Forget it. He's out of here.
That's how I feel. I'm like, Grandma, please go. I'm
You
just
go away, right?
Have you had that problem, Alex? Did you have a
Yeah.
grandma that bothers you? Yeah?
Yes. My grandmother who passed last year or 2 years ago. She always in my dreams. Always.
Really?
And I'm like, just go be on the other side and do you. Like, I'm fine. Because she
Wow.
used to worry about me here when she
Yeah.
was on this plane.
Yeah.
So I guarantee she's still worrying about me.
Wow. That's the first time I ever heard somebody complain about somebody talking to them from the other realm. Well, except for Walt with that guy who freaked him out. I mean,
Well,
but
I
I
can tell you
guess,
another story. I can tell you exactly another story. My sister experienced this one. Um, my wife's name is Louise, and we actually have a history of Louises in my family,
Hmm.
including a great aunt on my father's side, Aunt Louise, who my sister had had some interactions with toward the end of her life, and they weren't really happy interactions. They were actually pretty miserable from my sister's perspective. Anyway,
Hmm.
when my Aunt Louise died, she left her silver to my sister. And my sister refused to accept it because she was so mad at Louise at the way Louise had treated her. Um, Now, the funny part is that when my Louise and I married, PJ, my sister, gave us the silver set, saying, "Look, I'm not going to use it. I don't want to have anything to do with it, but you might as well use it. It's got the letter T monogram on it. That's perfect, So here you go." So we got the most expensive wedding gift from the person who was least able to give an expensive wedding gift, which was kind of funny. But my sister later told me that she has a lot of psychic phenomena that she experiences, and she had a psychic experience where she was told that there were a number of her spirit guides with her, and one of them was our Aunt Louise, who was described as hiding behind one of the other spirits because she was so embarrassed about the way she had treated PJ in life that
Hmm.
she didn't even want to be there, but she felt like she had to be there.
Yeah.
wow.
So apparently, embarrassment is a factor on the other side,
Yeah.
Wow. That's
which
wild.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
A
uh,
lot of spirits have unfinished business, and they have, uh feelings left over from being alive. So yeah, that can happen.
Yeah. Supposedly in the shamanic world, it's a really big deal about those
Hmm.
troubled spirits and how they
Yeah.
go into the weakest person in a family chain, and they wreak havoc. They create
Yeah.
alcoholism. They
Hmm.
create physical illnesses, all kinds of things.
Yep.
Well, all I can tell you is I'm kind of glad that we have a time limit on this because my brain is starting to fry. But this is
Oh, yeah.
You need some
This is
bacon.
this is
actually I
your
need to go to
brain.
sleep.
This is your brain on dreams.
This is your brain on dreams.
But I want to thank all the people who asked questions from the group. That was great. I mean, once again we broke new ground. We went off in a completely new direction talking about sleep and dreams. But it's been fantastic. Thank you to everybody who asked, and Alex and Tom, thank you guys very much
Yeah.
for all your
Oh,
contributions.
you're welcome.
Thanks for
Yeah,
hosting
really.
this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Good.
and we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Wow.